So, the DCU is by far the most divisive movie franchise right now. Oh, well, second most divisive. The series has had its highs and lows, and with Aquaman coming out, looking like another high for the series, I figured why not go for every DCU movie and rank them from worst to best. And yes, I know it's not called the DCU, it is instead called Worlds of DC, but that name is too long, and it sucks. So I'm calling it a DCU for the time being. Also, spoilers for all these films, but there are time codes in the description below. So if you haven't seen one of these movies, and don't want it spoiled, you can just skip over to another review of these films. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get into it. So Man of Steel is a movie that I would describe as frustrating. Some of it is really great, but there's also plenty that isn't so great. And if some of that was just changed, this could have easily been the best Superman movie ever made. But it wasn't. Let's start off with what I liked. I think nearly everything that takes place on Earth before Zod arrives is just fantastic. The flashbacks to Superman as a kid being unable to control his powers and saving people, all really well done. And are some of the best scenes in the movie. There's also the scene on the oil rig, which is pretty great, if not a bit over the top, and the bar scene and the scene where Superman learns to fly, which are also both great. The music is amazing, the main theme has already become iconic. I love the Superman costume, the performances are all pretty great, I like Henry Cavill as Superman a lot, Michael Shannon is fantastic, Russell Crowe, Kevin Costner and Amy Adams are all great as well. The first half of the movie feels a lot more personal than a lot of other superhero movies. Like it's more about the character than the spectacle and action. And then there's the second half, and everything I just said just gets tossed out the window. Which is why the film is so frustrating to me. As soon as Zod arrives on Earth, this feels like a completely different movie. I mean, I like the Smallville fight scene, partly because we actually see Superman save someone, but everything after that, it's just way too much. There's too much bad CGI, too much destruction, which Superman partly caused by the way, too much screaming, and it just doesn't feel like what the rest of the movie was leading up to. Zod's death is also stupidly convoluted and could have been prevented as well. Like if Superman has enough of a grip on Zod's head that he can snap his neck, then surely he can move his head away from the family. Also, why are they just standing there? They can get it out of the way. There are also some other problems I have with the film as well. The opening on Krypton is weird, out of place, and goes on for way too long. Some of the dialogue is a bit iffy and on the nose. The obvious religious parallels don't help with that at all. There's the IHOP product placement, which is pretty annoying, and I don't hate it, but the tornado scene isn't that great. Jonathan Kent's death should be a quiet, somber moment, like in the original Superman. Overall, even though I've bagged on Man of Steel quite a lot, I think the majority of the film is still pretty good, and even the worst scenes of the movie are never awful. I'm gonna give Man of Steel a 7.2 out of 10. Before I get into the review, I want to point out that I decided to watch the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman because I wanted to watch the best version of the film out there. So, Batman v Superman is a film that I'm very mixed on, even more than Man of Steel. There are some great elements at play here, but there's also plenty of bad elements as well. Let's start off with the good. Ben Affleck's Batman and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman are both pretty awesome for the most part. I love both of their costumes, the performances from them are pretty great, and they steal the show, easily. This also has the best live-action Alfred I've seen. Jeremy Irons is honestly just incredible in this. The music is once again fantastic, I love the opening credit sequence, there are some cool visuals, and most of the action is amazing. The Metropolis sequence is great, the Batman vs Superman fight is pretty awesome, and the warehouse fight is phenomenal. As for the Doomsday battle, it's not great, but it's still pretty entertaining for the most part. As for the negatives, the movie is way too long for its own good, and the plot moves way too slowly. I think it's in large part due to the Lois Lane subplot, which adds nothing to this movie's story, and is there for basically no reason at all. I think if that subplot was cut out, while the subplot with Clark Kent looking into Batman was left in, the movie would be way more compelling. Someone out there make that fan edit. There's also Batman killing people, which I said in my review I thought was fine because he does it in the comics. Since then though, I've changed my mind. I think it's fine for some movies to have Batman kill, but it doesn't work in this one because it makes him a hypocrite. He hates Superman because he killed people in the Battle of Metropolis, but Batman's also killed plenty of people, so his motivation makes no sense. The villains are garbage. I don't know what they were going for with Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, and Doomsday looks terrible. I just hate that design so much, and it doesn't help that you see Doomsday's bare ass in the movie as well. There are also some really bad scenes, like the Justice League being introduced via an email attachment, which is such a weird and clunky way to tease them. Also, how did Bruce Wayne know Diana's email address? There's also the Martha scene, which is stupid. Like, I get it. Batman realizes by killing Superman, he'd be letting Martha die, and he'd be no better than the man who killed his parents. I understand. But he only comes to this realization because, coincidentally, Superman and him both have mums named Martha. That's just really stupid. I guess that means if Superman's mum wasn't named Martha, then Batman would have just killed him, I guess. The execution of the scene doesn't help either, it's very cheesy and melodramatic. Overall, Batman v Superman is a mixed bag. I don't think it's either good or bad, it's just somewhere in the middle. It's entertaining for the most part, and there are some small elements of this film which I love, and I wish there were more of. But a lot of the creative decisions for this film I just don't love. I'm gonna give Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice a 5.5 out of 10. All my friends are heathens, take it slow.
Yeah, it's Suicide Squad time.
So, I remember really looking forward to Suicide Squad. The trailers looked absolutely incredible, and it just looks like a very different type of superhero film. And I remember walking out of the cinema thinking, man, I should not have high expectations for a movie ever again. Suicide Squad is not a very good movie. In fact, it's pretty bad. Alright, let's start off with the positives. Gotta stay positive. I really liked some of the cast in this: Will Smith, Joel Kinnaman, Viola Davis, and surprisingly Jai Courtney all give great performances. The makeup is also really good. Was the Oscar worthy though? And this is gonna sound like a weird positive, but the movie isn't unwatchable. A lot of the scenes are just okay and aren't awful. You can sit through it and not hate the experience. Which again, I know is a weird thing to say is good about this, but compared to another DC film which we'll get into later, this doesn't reach that level. Okay, now for the negatives, and there are quite a lot. Some of the cast I really don't like in this, or just don't like in general. Both Jared Leto's Joker and Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn I personally find to be really annoying, and at times cringeworthy. Especially Jared Leto, like, I have no idea what he's going for. A lot of the dialogue isn't great either.
Now that's killer app.
Katana is wasted and gets nothing to do. People complain that Killer Croc was wasted in this, but at least he got to throw the bomb. That's something. But Katana, there's nothing. The action isn't great either, it's really bland and so bloodless, it's kind of hilarious at points. I don't usually notice these sort of things, but the sound effects were really bad as well. It sounded like stock sound effects. Also, there's the editing, which is by far the worst part of this movie. It feels like I'm watching a music video with all these songs used and the weird cuts. Like, watch this.
It's my time then.
This your lady.
Look, are you enjoying yourself?
I didn't edit that. Why was Harley walking and in the next shot she just sat down? Why did nobody notice this? And how did nobody notice how bad this movie is? Overall, Suicide Squad isn't the worst movie of all time, but, you know, still bad. There's some okay stuff here and there, but I wouldn't really want to watch it again anytime soon. I'm gonna give Suicide Squad a 4.7 out of 10.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Alright, now we're back to something good. Wonder Woman, although it isn't perfect, is an extremely enjoyable movie, and it's a really good movie, which is good, because I like good movies. Let's go through all the positives. First off, all of the cast are great here. I know a lot of people think Gal Gadot is a bad actress, but I honestly can't see that. She's excellent in this, and has fantastic chemistry with Chris Pine, who is also just as great. They share some of the best scenes in the entire film. There's some great action in here as well, such as the No Man's Land sequence, which is just incredible. The movie also just has a super fun and enjoyable tone throughout, which was really refreshing for the DCU at this point. It's not perfect though, there's some clunky exposition. Etta Candy is honestly one of the worst comedic relief characters I've ever seen. None of her jokes land. And there's some really bad CGI and green screen, especially during the final fight with Ares, which is a pretty bad scene, and it feels so out of place and just out of nowhere. Especially since it comes right after Steve Trevor telling Diana that killing one person won't lead to peace, because humanity is more complicated than that. But then she kills Ares, and that leads to peace. So it feels like the movie was just betraying its own message there. Overall though, Wonder Woman is a really good, entertaining movie. It's no masterpiece, but it has about everything you'd want from a superhero movie. Likeable protagonists, a great romance, good action, and a fun, uplifting tone. I'm gonna give Wonder Woman an 8.3 out of 10. Yeah, this movie's trash. Justice League is not a good movie. At all. It's so bad and such a mess that it's just hard to sit through. And I'm honestly not sure if rewatching it was worth it just to make this video. I could have just stared at a wall for 2 hours and gotten the same experience. Okay, let's start off with what I liked. Some of the cast is good here. Jason Momoa as Aquaman I really enjoyed, J.K. Simmons is good in anything he's in. Even though I thought the writing for the characters was pretty bad, Ezra Miller and Ray Fisher are really good as the Flash and Cyborg. At least for what they're going for. There are some scenes I like as well. The opening with Batman I like for some reason. I don't know, it just felt very comic booky and I kind of enjoyed it. The Green Lantern cameo was pretty cool. I liked the action scene on the Gotham Harbor. That's probably the only good action scene in the movie. Probably because it wasn't overdone with pointless reshoots. Except this iconic moment. Yep, that totally belonged in this movie. Alright, now for what sucked. The movie looks incredibly artificial, like the entire movie was all shot on a green screen. Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot aren't very good in this. Affleck just looks like he's tired throughout the whole thing, and Gal Gadot...
But it's necessary.
Why? Because of your guilt?
The writing is also really bad, and none of the jokes land.
He did. He said that you were the thirstiest young woman he ever met. Hungriest.
The reshoots are all incredibly obvious, like look at this scene, or pay attention to Ezra Miller's hair. There's also Henry Cavill's infamous CGI'd out mustache. For those who don't know, the Justice League reshoots were being shot at the same time as Mission Impossible Fallout, where Henry Cavill has a big old mustache. And when he did the reshoots for this, he legally wasn't allowed to shave it off. So Warner Brothers just covered it up with CGI, and it looks pretty weird.
Yes, ma'am.
There's also this newspaper, just wanted to point it out. There's the Russian family subplot, which adds nothing to this already overstuffed movie. Some of the CGI is okay, but a lot of it looks awful. Steppenwolf is the most bland villain in movie history. He's not even a character. He's just the bad guy. There's nothing to him. Also, his design is god-awful. He looks like a giant action figure. And he has the worst scene in the movie where he lands on Themyscira. It's one of the worst action scenes I've honestly ever seen. Look at this. How did anyone over at Warner Brothers look at this and go, yeah, this is fine, we have no problem releasing this? Overall, Justice League is one of the worst and most boring superhero movies I've seen in a while, and I hope I never have to see it again. That said, it is an achievement in filmmaking. Yes, really. The fact that this went through one of the biggest production nightmares in history for a Hollywood blockbuster, with the director being fired and replaced, Henry Cavill's mustache, the studio interfering to make this movie have a lighter tone and be way more colourful, and the unwillingness to delay the movie, with all that held against this, it's a goddamn miracle that Justice League didn't end up as bad as something like Fantastic. I mean, it's still really bad though. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I'm going to give Justice League a 3.5 out of 10. Okay, now let's rank them from worst to best. At number 5, aka the worst DCU movie, is, of course, Justice League. At number 4 is Suicide Squad. At number 3 is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. At number 2 is Man of Steel. And at number 1, aka the best DCU movie, is Wonder Woman. Anyway, that's my ranking of all the DCU movies so far. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter, @CinemaGeekYT. Leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this one.